This last couple days is driving me insane, Jody, as I get text after text about, oh, this team's interested in this. Chris Olave in Washington is now a big deal, which I didn't see coming. And that's a player I think that would have been heavily in play for the Eagles at 15. And I couldn't imagine that he wouldn't be there. Now maybe he won't be there. Um, but maybe Garrett Wilson is there if Chris Olave isn't. So you can look at it that way.
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.
Yes, the countdown is on to draft day 1. 2. We like that too. 2 days until the Eagles get on the board at number 15, or will they? We'll discuss it the next couple days here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Your buddies McDonald and McMullen, a.k.a. Mac and Mac, here to chop it up with you. J-Mac, 2 days and counting. I'm getting a little nervous for the Eagles, for all the teams, because it's a huge day for all 32 teams in the National Football League. Eagles a little more so than others because they've got 2 first-round picks, and the question is, how active will Monty Hall, a.k.a. Howie Roseman, be? We know he likes to wheel and deal on draft day. Does this draft set up for Howie to do his best wheeling and dealing stuff?
Well, I don't know because he already did some of that pre-draft, so I think that's in the rearview mirror. I do think there's a couple players he would like to do the targeted move up if necessary, sort of like last year with Devontae Smith. But this team has multiple needs at multiple positions. We talked about it. I think they need the 2 first-round picks. I think they need the second-round pick. I think they need the 2 third-round picks. So I do think if he wants to move around, and make that targeted move up, I think maybe he has to move down at 18 to get back and do a lot of sort of manipulating of the board more than gaining or losing draft picks, if that makes sense. I think he needs all the picks in those first 2 days. But if you can swing it and get players you want, in other words, if they have to go up to get a player and they have 4 or 5 on the board and they can go down, I think it would be more comfortable. But that's tough to pull off in the first round. We'll see how it goes. But they should be able to get a good player at 15 if they stand pat. You just start doing the math. The more quarterbacks go, the better. This last couple days is driving me insane, Jody, as I get text after text about, oh, this team's interested in this. Chris Olave in Washington is now a big deal, which I didn't see coming. And that's a player I think that would have been heavily in play for the Eagles at 15. And I couldn't imagine that he wouldn't be there. Now maybe he won't be there. But maybe Garrett Wilson is there if Chris Olave isn't. So you can look at it that way. A lot of fun. And, maybe it takes your Philadelphia's mind off freaking out about the Sixers for 10 minutes. So hopefully we can do that for you this morning. But, they should be able to get a good player at 15. Not as confident as 18. But Howie thinks it's 20 deep, so we'll see.
All right, I'm going to run down a list of 9 players for you. Make note of these if you can just remember them fine. If you got to jot them down, please do so. And then I'll have a specific question about them. Here are the 9 players I'm looking at. Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Jordan Davis, Zion Johnson, Nakobe Dean, Gerald Wilson, Kyle Hamilton, Derek Stingley, Terry McBride, and Will Cole. I won't even put the quarterback into the mix. Those, to me, are the number one ranked players at their positions for this upcoming draft. We'll leave Matt Araiza out of it, too. We won't put the punters in. But those are at the 9 key positions, the top players in the draft. Tell me the Eagles are going to get at least one of those guys.
Perhaps Jordan Davis. That would be the only one I could see them getting. Outside, I would say another outside chance for Derek Stingley Jr. I'm going to give you a list these are the names over the past couple days I'm hearing most of the Eagles. Now, this is not in order. Jordan Davis, Chris Olave, who I mentioned, Jameson Williams, who I think is less likely by the day, Derek Stingley Jr., I think you would have to trade up. Jermaine Johnson, you would certainly have to trade up, I think, even though somebody had him dropping into the 20s yesterday. I kind of went, oof, I'm not getting that feeling. Devontae Wyatt, who I think you could stay put, probably at 18. Lewis Seen, which was an interesting one to me. I think that would be a drop down situation from 18, dropping down later in the draft. And then the center from Nebraska, there is heavy chatter, but that's more of a second round pick. And but there is heavy chatter on the Eagles with Cam Jurgens. But that would be more of a second round pick. So, take it for what it's worth. You have agents trying to prop up their clients, but there are certain guys, and really Jordan Davis. I mean, look, the Eagles are doing a hell of a job because everybody in this league thinks they have significant interest in Jordan Davis. I don't know if they can pull it off. I think, to me, his Baltimore's at 14. I think they would take him. So I think you would have to go up a little bit. And Derek Stingley, you would certainly have to go up. And I think it was Peter King who had Jermaine Johnson falling into the 20s or later in the draft. I think he might go 4 to your team, Jody. I think that's how high he's going up. And if it's not 4, it might be 10. But the Jets want to trade out. So a lot of moving balls in the air as this comes down. But there's certain guys I think the Eagles would have to go up and get.
It's funny that you mentioned the center from Nebraska. I had one of my draft guys on my CBS show over the weekend, or maybe it was even all the way back to the previous weekend, who said that they actually ranked Jurgens higher than Tyler Linderbaum, that he was the best center in the draft. That Linderbaum is, as you and I have talked before, because
too small.
The Eagles always
he might not even be a first round pick now. He's one of those guys where you saw first round, and all of a sudden you wake up for day 2 and he's still on the board. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I still think he might go late first round, but I think there's a potential he could get pushed to the second round. And Jody, I wouldn't go near it. He's just too small, and everything's got to be perfect. Your technique's got to be perfect. Your fundamentals, everything's got to be perfect. And there's too much margin of error.
Right. And he's oftentimes tied to the Eagles because, well, he'll be the perfect natural replacement for Jason Kelce, because Jason Kelce is also another slightly undersized center. Jason Kelce is like a unicorn. To expect someone to come in and be able to do what Jason Kelce does, Jason Kelce does, is kind of wishing on a star. So I don't think the Eagles are a player for Linderbaum, and I'm with you. I think he actually could fall into the second round. By the way, I ran you down a list of 9 names, the guys that I think are the top at their positions, and asking you if the Eagles can get one. The Jets are getting 2. Jets are going to stay put right where they are, and Thibodeau is going to fall to them at 4, and they're going to gobble him up. And then, unfortunately for the Eagles, at least per McMullen and McDonald, Kyle Hamilton will come off the board at 10 to the Jets. So my list of 9 players who are the best at their position, I think the Jets are getting 2 of them at both 4 and 10.
Yeah, I hope for your sake they don't go Jermaine Johnson as the edge rusher. I get some Cleveland Ferrell. I think Joe Douglas likes him, but we'll see. But you can like a player and still like somebody else better.
And I like Johnson. If they take Johnson at 10 because they go a different direction at 4, I'm okay with that. I like that player as well. I'm hoping that he's sitting on the board at 15 when the Eagles picked. I don't know that the Eagles would take him, but I'd like to see them have a shot. I think he's going to be a really good player. He's just not Thibodeau, who I think is, once they go edge pass rusher at 4, they're not going edge pass rusher at 10.
No, yeah. I'm talking Johnson at 4. That's how high I'm talking. That's where Cleveland Ferrell went.
Ferrell was number 4 overall.
He was number 4 overall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oof.
I get some of those vibes going. Now they still might go. I think they would be smarter to go Ahmed Gardner at 4 and get that need off the board, and take Johnson at 10 if they're not going to move out. So I'm with you. I'd rather have him at 10. But if you like the player, you like the player, and you might as well go get the player. And if you're right, none of it matters, obviously. If you're wrong, though, like Mike Mayock was with Cleveland Ferrell, who knows if it was Mike or John Gruden, but you know how it works. It's tough to live down, even if you get Max Crosby later. We talk about it all the time. They got Max Crosby.
Yeah,
but,
if they flip those 2 picks, nobody's complaining.
Yeah, nobody's complaining at all. They got a pretty good role player, and they got a star. So a lot of it's silly, but that's just the way it is. We talk about it all the time. If you're a first-round pick, you better play like a first-round pick.
Speaking of silly, you mentioned you're garnering information these days. Some of it just going online and reading it. Other guys reaching out to you. You reaching out to other guys to see what they think, what they have. We've had this done every year for X amount of years in a row when it comes to the draft, and that's the season of misinformation. The people want to get certain pieces of information out there to make people believe, like you and me doing a show here, similar shows all around the country to, this is what this team's doing. Maybe someone from a specific team hears it and says, here's good news. We might not have to trade up and get a guy because this team isn't going to make that kind of a pick. Don't know how much of it works, but I know for a fact it goes on. And all you have to do is go back and track it after the draft is over and done with. Some repeat, the Eagles are guaranteed to pick. They're heavy leanings toward this. And then, of course, the guy's on the board and they pass on him. Why? Because there was misinformation that was put out there before the draft happens. How much misinformation do you think is out there this particular year?
A ton of it. That's why you'll never hear me say the Eagles are taking, and that's, nobody's getting that information. Nobody. They're not calling up people and saying, Martin Frank and I were joking about it on Twitter. They're not calling up even national guys and saying, hey, we're going to take blah 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 if he's there. They're not. You do get information about players they have a significant interest in. There are people who used to work for the organization that are still very close to the organization that know how they do things, know how they grade players, know where they put, and even the grade of the players. It's not like they have, okay, so and so is a first round pick, so and so is a second round pick. That's not how they do it. The Eagles do it. They have a database. It's a percentile system, and you sort of stack the board. And it becomes more of, okay, who's available? Who do we like? So you get more of who you like. But anytime you see somebody, and it's generally not the guys who understand how it works. I mean, the national reporters, you're never going to see them saying, oh, so-and-so is going to take blah, blah, blah. It's just, it doesn't work that way. That's not how NFL teams do business, unless you're Jacksonville at number 1 overall. Somebody could say, oh, Jacksonville's going to take Ike Ekwonu, which I think is more likely by the day. And they might have that information, and they might have, because there's only one team. There's only one team guaranteed of getting one player. And then Detroit, the odds are pretty good. They're not going to go Aiden Hutchinson. But even that, Malik Willis could jump into it. How much does Detroit like Malik Willis? And how quickly do they want to get started? Because they don't have to play him right away. But then there's the pressure we always talk about. Now, San Francisco lived through it, and they had a good season, taking a kid in the top 5. But there's tremendous pressure when you lose, and Detroit looks like they're going to lose some games, unlike San Francisco, which was in the mix the entire time. So there wasn't as much pressure. So you have all these kinds of things factor into it. But as far as the Eagles at 15, there's a lot of moving parts when there's 14 picks ahead of you.
Playing in your league's championship game, as the 49ers did this year. Yeah, I'd call that being in the mix. That's pretty damn good. So you're right. There isn't pressure to put the highly drafted quarterback in when you're playing that well as a team. You mentioned the national guys. Certainly Schefter did yesterday, and others as well, putting the narrative out there that more teams are looking to trade back than trade up. Do you believe that was misinformation? That there was actually a couple teams that are looking to trade up, that want everyone to think that trading up is going to be difficult because everybody's looking to trade down. But that's actually what they want to do. So they want to try and swing the tide. Do you think that was at all a planted story?
No. There's a lot of teams that want to move down.
You're buying that story.
Yeah. And some of it is, you take the Giants and Jets, fans are all excited. Some of it is that you just don't want those two expensive 50-year options looming over your organization in down the road. Some of it's just salary cap, and some of it you prefer to get a little bit lower, especially if you have similar grades on the board for certain players. Then it becomes easier. Obviously, Jacksonville would love to trade down right at the start because they don't need a quarterback, but there's no quarterback worthy of number 1. So they're kind of stuck. And I have to take that oversized contract at number 1 overall, perhaps at a position that's not as valued as quarterback. So yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that want to move down. But to me, it's interesting that Howie said 1 to 20 is basically the Eagles tier, and then 21 to 50 is tier 2. So they're 15 and 18.
2 questions for you. Number 1, if the Eagles were picking 15th and 22nd, do you think Howie would have said, well, we've got about 22 players that we look at with true first-round grades? I think the 20 was a nice round number, and it kept the Eagles in the mix.
But I don't think. Here's why I disagree, Jody. You could be right, but I don't think he did it on purpose. It's one of those off the cuff moments where he probably didn't want to do it, and he just blurted it out. And I don't think he was. And the Eagles are concerned, like a lot of teams, that asking how many quarterbacks are going to go, because that. A quarterback's not going to be in that 20. And if they, if 2 get drafted, okay, that enables you to go down to 22 in theory. And even that's not, everybody's not going to have the same 20 players. So who knows? You can go down to 23, you can go down to 24, 25. And that just gives you more ability to move up with that 15th pick. And then if you want to move down, in back of it, as we just talked about, because you want to keep the 5 overall picks, I would think, in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, and the other one I don't see the same as you is the Giants and the Jets and a couple of teams that have 2 picks in the first round, Eagles included, the fear of having 2 guys come together at the same time for having to pick up that option.
Oh, that's real, Jody.
Make good picks. Get the right guys. What are you going to do? Go out and pay for a free agent instead? You got to pay for your players, John. You might as well have them in your system for as many years as you can, rather than who came in as the top flight player as a underpaid free agent this year.
Well, yeah, you
Same
can say
thing.
you got to pay your players, but and by the way, as you go down, a top 5 pick is a lot different than 25. So, if you still stay in the first round, you don't have it. I'm not saying by any stretch that it's the most important parts. Well, that was the Eagles. That was one of the reasons the Eagles didn't want 3 first round picks. And they're more budget conscious than most, but smart teams do keep an eye on the budget. Is all I'm trying to say.
Three is a bit much. I'll give you that, and that's why I thought Howie did a good job by securing a first round pick going forward in another year. As long as you're not taking quarterback, because once you get to the quarterback, that fifth year option goes up pretty significantly, and neither the Jets or the Giants, both of them with 2 top 10 picks, are taking a quarterback this year anyway. So I think neither team will complain about it. I don't think either one is going to trade back. I think they're going to sit there and try and add in one team in the division against the Eagles, the Giants, and the Jets being the other one. I think they're just going to try and add 4 very good young players. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are here with you on Birds 365. We're going to punch up our first guest when we come back. Shane Hallam from draftcountdown.com going to hop aboard. We got some questions about this upcoming draft, and I was on his site this morning. They're already mocking 2023. I got a question about that as well. McDonald and McMullen, the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365.